Hello and welcome to the European Parliament in Brussels for Talking Europe. Is Federica Mogherini the right person to lead Europe's diplomacy? The appointment of Italy's young foreign minister as EU High Representative has polarized member states. While some regard her as inexperienced and too soft on Russia, others praise her youth as a virtue and believe she belongs to a new generation of European leaders. So who is Mrs. Mogherini? Let's watch our report.
After a hectic 5-year term, Catherine Ashton hands over the reins to her replacement. Federica Mogherini is to become the European Union's new foreign policy chief.
Federica Mogherini will participate in the hearings in the Parliament and will take up her role on the 1st of November when the new Commission starts.
Yet just 2 months ago, she had seemed to be out of the running. At the last EU summit, Eastern European and Baltic countries rejected her nomination, criticising the 41-year-old for a lack of experience and a soft stance against Russia, a position she has since adapted. Arguments swept aside by Social Democrats pushing her candidacy.
Elle est jeune, mais elle a déjà de l'expérience.
She's young, but she already has experience. She's the Minister of Foreign Affairs in her country and deals with, unfortunately, the same crises that we're facing all over the world.
Que nous connaissons dans le monde.
Federica Mogherini has been Italian Foreign Minister for just 6 months under Matteo Renzi's government. Matteo Renzi, whose support added valuable weight to her nomination after he himself scored more than 40% of the votes in the last European elections. Her predecessor Catherine Ashton was criticised for a lack of charisma during her mandate. Now it's Federica Mogherini who will have to demonstrate that European diplomacy can exist in the face of 28 countries, each defending their own interests.
Well, let's continue our discussion about Federica Mogherini, and I'm pleased to welcome Sandra Kalniete. Hello, you're a member of the European Parliament from Latvia. You're the vice chair of the European People's Party here in the Parliament. That's the centre-right group. Now, your country, Latvia, being a neighbour of Russia, has long called for a strong European foreign policy vis-à-vis Moscow. You'll tell us whether you think that Mrs. Mogherini can embody this. Also with us from Italy and from the very party of Federica Mogherini, Brando Benifei. You're from the Democratic Party of Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi, and you were elected to the European Parliament in May as part of Renzi's effort to promote a new generation of young politicians. Very welcome. I'll start with you because you're from Italy and you know Mrs. Mogherini very well. Is she the right candidate to lead Europe's diplomacy?
I think Federica is part of this kind of renovation of politics in EU that Matteo Renzi is promoting. I think she's a very good candidate because I've read a lot of, I think, not well-based criticism on her, because we must distinguish a position of Italy about Russia that has always been of a mediation and trying to, but also strict on the sanctions that we are
We're going to talk about
now.
Russia later, but in terms of personality.
I think she has a very strong personality. I know her very well for many years. She has been 10 years before me the vice president of the Young European Socialists, so she has been an international leader since she was young, and I think her name, together with Donald Tusk, is really a step forward compared to the previous duo that was, I think, a bit politically weak.
You mean Catherine Ashton and
yes,
Emma Van Rompuy? So you think it's a dream ticket? Sandra Kalniete, do you agree that Mrs. Mogherini is up to the task?
I should say that I like Federica Mogherini as a personality, and I hope that she has enough personality to impose common European external policy to big countries like France, Germany, Spain, because that is a real challenge.
That's a big challenge.
Secondly, she also has to impose European vision to our neighbors, such as China, Russia, and others, who are countries and continents in itself. My hesitation regarding her is not only because traditional Italian proximity to Russia's support and so on, but also because Europe finds itself in a very difficult situation. We have numerous conflicts on our borders, which implies a very strong and experienced foreign minister. But I would see of that experience like Carl Bildt or Radek Sikorski or somebody else.
The
for
foreign ministers
Mogherini,
of Sweden and Poland.
Yeah, for Mogherini, it will take time to forge her mandate, her position, her influence. They would step in and would begin immediately.
I think
this is a criticism. She's been in the job of foreign minister for less than 8 months. Does she have what it takes? Is her
yes, but
CV
she's been working for
enough?
20 years on international affairs, also for the Democratic Party, which has been in government for a long time. So she contributed for the foreign policy of now the main party of Italy and the strongest party in Europe at the moment. So I think she has the experience. Obviously, she needs time, but as you mentioned, some more experienced names, maybe to do what you said, to have a real European foreign policy, we need to start afresh with another, also drawing a line from the past where a European common foreign policy was not possible.
But when
so maybe a new person
is
with a lot of international contacts, because Federica is really well entrenched into all the new ministers, new MPs, also with a stronger relation with the US government. I'm sure she will be able to use her relations.
I'm happy to hear that, but then I look to Ukraine or to Iraq, where days count, not months, but days count to reverse the situation, the humanitarian assistance.
Yes, but Federica Mogherini, until we confirm her, she will not be the High Representative. So
I know,
even if we
but from the first her day, she will be. Yes. And the crisis will not be resolved until she will step in.
I'm sure, but she will be able to take the office strongly.
You both mentioned...
I keep you to your word.
We'll be watching closely, of course. You both mentioned Russia on several occasions. A number of countries, particularly from Eastern Europe, perceived her as too soft on Russia. Actually, the Lithuanian president, Dalia Grybauskaitė, abstained from supporting Mogherini during the vote in the council in August. Is there a problem? Why would Mogherini be pro-Russia?
The problem is not being pro-Russia or against Russia. The problem is the understanding of the problem which arises from Russia's change, from the change of its geopolitical goals, its external policy, from violation of international law. Because since the end of the Second World War, this practically is the first time when in such a way international law is transgressed. And that is exactly what Russia is doing. And the question is, there are countries understanding better Russia's intentions and goals. And for years and years, the newcomers to the Union, we warned our more experienced Western partners that Russia is constructing itself as a country which is dangerous. Nevertheless, we became energy dependent to Russia. Nevertheless, we became dependent on Russia's market, and I can continue. What is important for Federica Mogherini and many Western politicians to understand that Russia, as we know it, it's over. Now we have to create a new policy towards Russia.
Last week I was in Krynica, the economic forum in Poland, where a lot of Eastern European politicians debated, and we discussed also about the relations with Russia, and I'm fully aware of all the worries, and they are well based for many reasons. So I understand the position of our Eastern member states, but at the same time I don't really see any different attitude from the EU at the moment from what you are hoping for, because we are united in imposing sanctions. We have prepared a new set of sanctions, especially on the financial sector, and further sanctions on the oil industry. You know that we are pursuing as EU some energy independence. So I think we will stick to a policy that is trying to put also, I mean, this should be our role, to put also as a force of peace as EU, and we should try to go further in helping also Ukraine settle their problems. I was reading now the last speeches of like 1 hour ago. Poroshenko declared that he will work on giving a kind of autonomy, but not independence from Ukraine to the eastern part. We must support a way of pacification of the country, being able to do a strong policy on Russia, but not being, also we must not be unable to also ensure a diplomatic effort.
We understood your positions on Russia. You earlier criticized Catherine Ashton. You seemingly were not very pleased with her mandate. Mrs. Mogherini is due to succeed Catherine Ashton. What lessons do you draw from Ashton's term in office? What should be changed?
First of all, she was the first Madame PESC, which means that she was obliged to put in the motion all the system of the service. And it takes time.
Yeah, the service was invented from scratch, I should say. She was
not exactly. We had certain external service, but still, she had to raise it much higher. Secondly, if we look to her heritage, she is widely criticized not having splendid successes. But if we look also, she did not commit any fatal or even minor error. She was present in all hot points when it was necessary, because the mandate is rather limited, and I regret this, because I, like a representative from country from Eastern Europe, we want a common, strong policy, not only towards our eastern neighbors, but in principle, and it is important for Europe. Ashton acted in the limits in that small corridor which was left by Great Britain, Germany, France, Spain. And I expect that Mogherini, as you portrayed her, with her very strong personality, that she would be able to enlarge her mandate and impose herself.
How can you make sure that the member states are no longer in the driving seat and that Mrs. Mogherini gets to do what she wants to do?
But I must clarify, in fact, I'm myself a European federalist, and I'm in favor of a stronger, coordinated, unitarian European foreign policy. And I agree that Catherine Ashton had this structural problem behind her of building the EEAS, and also a very limited mandate because of how the foreign policy is decided in the EU. So that's why I said that compared to the previous High Representative, I think that with a person who has a stronger personality, a backing from a new generation, also of a new leadership from Italy that is now I think is leading the progressives in Europe at the moment, I think she will have also the political backing to do some bold initiatives and to be able to take the initiative.
And she's a polyglot. I think it may help.
Yeah, also.
Speaks French, I believe, English, Italian, and Spanish.
Exactly, that's true.
Now, there will, of course...
Because if we want a single European foreign policy, we need also to have a leadership that starts it. Otherwise,
I hope she will be that leader.
I think she will.
There will be hearings in the European Parliament. It will be up to you to grill all the possible commissioners. What do you expect will happen for Mrs. Mogherini? Will she get the support she needs here in the European Parliament?
She was invited as representing Italian presidency, not in her new capacity, to meet with our political group, and she left quite good impression. But one thing is just exchange of views, and another is hearing. I would be very careful if I would be in her place, because there are also a sort of net where all commissioners are tied together. As soon as there will be a commissioner attacked for Liberals or European People's Party, that will be Federica Mogherini, who will be attacked also. Because that is the agreement, what we have, that if commissioner is professional, we will not use our hats of whatever political party to drown him. If there will be others doing that, immediately we will also follow that.
What you're describing essentially is this sort of grand coalition within the institutions.
And together with socialists, we are forming that grand coalition.
It's a package,
and we agree
a package of commissioners.
That we will be very attentive, strong, but not killing the Commission.
On the commissioners, I think that there is an imbalance between the number of member states that proposed socialists, liberals and EPP that is not balanced compared to the actual majorities in the parliament. We know that because the system is that each country proposes its own commissioner, so it's normal that this happens. But now, depending on the portfolio distribution, there must be a rebalance that reflects the results of the European elections.
This is exclusively the decision of the President of the Commission.
Yeah, but the President of the Commission now has been proposed through a process.
I was listening to you very carefully. He is proposing the college and the sharing of responsibilities as he sees the most effective college. Parliament has right to say yes or no to his vision. And then he presents something else, some other composition. Secondly, EPP have 19 governments. Socialists have 10 governments, which means that and in the commission, which is emanation of council, is reflected that reality of the governments. As I said, Parliament has right to confirm or to refuse.
Thank you so much for taking part in this edition of Talking Europe. Now, please stay with me. I'll return just after the news break and I'll bring you an interview with the Ukrainian ambassador to the European Union.